Hey guys, it's Vince. Today in this video we're going to cover a kind of different topic. It's more or less the CNC nickel and dime syndrome. I'm going to cover that scenario and explain this whole title to you, but overall I want to just paint you a quick picture. You're looking at getting involved in CNC manufacturing. You realize there's a lot of money to be made here. There's definitely, I would definitely say once you understand the concept and understand the software and actually what you're dealing with, it's a much safer investment than dealing with drop shipping or dealing with importing, because you actually control the quality of your goods. You know exactly what you're sending out. That being said, you were searching eBay to come up with a good idea for business model, and you found this right here. Found somebody engraving little tags for pets. Real simple platform. These are two-dimensional items. You could actually cut these out. However, you would have to either paint them or anodize them, have that actually done. If you choose not to go that route, you could just do the engraving. Either way, you know there's a business model here, because the guy's doing $66.81 as far as what his sold number is. He's selling these for $2.95 a piece. He says here if you buy 3, you'll get 1 free. A lot of you guys are out there going, well, how the hell can he sell them so cheap? He's giving you free shipping. Well, guys, let me clue you in on something. If you're manufacturing, you don't have overhead. Many of you already know that. So when we're looking at a $2.95 price tag, minus 13% between eBay and PayPal fees, that's about the average. You're looking at losing 38 cents there. We'll say he only has to ship these in an envelope. We'll say on the high side, on the highest side, he's paying another 65 cents. Okay, he's still clearing $1.91. Multiply that. We'll say he's engraving 100 of these units roughly an hour. And I said an hour, guys. That's what he's making an hour. Okay, that's what he's making an hour. So when I have clients or even potential clients ask me, sometimes I get confused. I don't know what to cut, what to make money with. I just showed you how quick it is to come up with a business model. Spend some time on eBay, spend some time on Etsy. You guys, like I said, we're doing this scenario in the sense that you wanted to figure out a business model, you put the time in, you went on here, you did a little research, and you found this little market. And it's actually a pretty big market considering the kind of feedback he has. That being said, everything here looks good. You're figuring your profit margin. Hold on one second. I'm going to grab a drink. You're figuring your profit margin is going to be really good money at $191.65 an hour. I mean, that's incredible. Mainly because you're the manufacturer, there's no middleman. Of course, at this price range, you realize that you couldn't import these, because if you were importing them and having them engraved customly, there's just no way you'd hit that price point. Other than that, you realize now it's time to buy equipment. So you decide to buy equipment, and we're going to run this scenario in a couple different ways. If you go online and you go to buy a tabletop chassis, and let's just say we'll run it this way, that you purchase it and you get the standard stock controller that comes with the chassis. It comes in, you start manufacturing your tags. You can see here I made a system downtime cost calculator. Most guys never even look at these type of prices or these type of variables. Hourly downtime, simply, that's pretty much self-explanatory. Component cost, this is hardware replacement or system upgrade costs. Labor costs, what your personal time is worth per hour. And believe me, guys, your time, most of you always want to be paid as a professional. I know I do. I'm not working for minimum wage. I have far too much education, and I respect myself too much for that. So many of you are supporting families like me, and you feel that your time is valuable. Again, you can put this number in whatever you want. It's arbitrary, but we'll say for this instance, we'll say $15 an hour labor. Okay. Substrate costs, real simple. Raw material loss due to damage from system issues. Well, many of you already know if you run the machine, it has step or direction losses. You're going to have problems with your motors. Those motor problems translate into all kinds of issues with machining. You can destroy material. When you destroy material, it goes under here. It will happen if the machine has issues. Client job cost per hour, client job cost per hour. Real simple. How much the downtime costs you per client lost production deadlines? Well, if you have a business model and you miss a deadline, you're going to do whatever it takes to make it right. If you have multiple client loss, where if you have, and this happens a lot to my clients, unfortunately, when they have a part fail, if they don't have that part in stock that failed, because they're running their equipment, consistently. If you're doing this full time, you better treat it like a full-time factory in the sense that you have motors and other accessories on hand, because if a motor goes down, cable fails, anything can happen at any point in time. If you have 3 or 4 jobs lined up, it could be absolutely catastrophic if something happens, and it can throw everything off. The dominoes all compiling down. That is the risk you take when you enter manufacturing. And again, these actual variables that I listed here are no different than they deal with in full-scale manufacturing. Guys, you are a manufacturer. You will be dealing with the same responsibility that a manufacturer will deal with, and this is one of them. That being said, you also have a variable here called vendor engineering support. How much a vendor costs you due to lack of support or selling you inferior components. Many of you have already experienced this. Many of you have found me. I'd say 98%. 98%, I'm not proud of that, of my clients come from the area where they realize they've been burned or they're lost. And they've had issues with the particular vendor they were working with, and they just don't care, or they're giving them the same garbage that they sold them before, and they're having problems. Guys, be very, very careful with this. We've gone over this many times in my videos. I can't emphasize it enough. But now we're going to quantify. Now it's time to stop talking about it and quantify. What does it really cost you? What does it cost you as a business owner / consumer to get involved and make a poor purchasing decision when it comes to the equipment you're going to be working with? Well, hourly downtime. Okay, we're going to say you got your chassis in, you ordered your tabletop chassis, you ordered the 6040 CNC from China. You knew you were going to save money, you knew you were going to get the controller with it. You figured, hey, I've read enough forum posts, I think I'm good. You understand Mach 3, you've been playing with it, you got your everything down, you're ready to start some engraving. You get the machine, everything is working good. Everything is working good, you're golden, you think everything is good. All of a sudden, the next day comes, you worked it yesterday, she ran great. You ran about a 3-hour period over the course of you testing everything, calibrating everything. Everything looks good. You have to go to work the next day, and now you're your day off again, and you're ready to start manufacturing again, get your business model up, and you incur, something odd happens. Okay? You've lost, let's say in this instance, you're actually cutting out your own tags because you figure you can make more money than actually buying them and engraving on them just in general, whatever custom engraving. You have the machine, you might as well be able to do it. You can do whatever you like, right? Okay, so you screwed up the substrate that you were cutting because you had something happen with the system. You're not quite certain yet because, of course, you have to analyze what just occurred. The substrate you screwed up, we figure, is going to cost you didn't screw up the whole piece, but you screwed up enough to where it's going to cost you $15, right? Doesn't sound like a lot, right? Okay, you're already paying yourself $15 labor costs. We've already acclimated that. Your hourly downtime, now you're trying to figure out what's wrong with the machine. Okay, this is where it gets interesting. You know you're going to have the resources that are commonly available, and most of you all use, and that's how usually you find me, is the internet. Naturally, you're going to go on to CNC Zone, you're going to go on to other forums, okay? I've discussed many times forums are hit and miss. You don't know who you're learning from. One guy says this, one guy says, or I should say, one guy says Ford, one guy says Chevy. It goes back and forth. You usually end up more confused, and not only more confused, but you're going back and forth in the sense of trying different things, and guess what happens? Before you know it, your hourly downtime has turned into 4 hours. That's about the average, okay? You've just cost yourself $60 right there. Your substrate loss cost you an additional $15, okay? You don't really have a client yet, okay, because you really don't have the business model substantiated. So at this point, you're only out $75 only, okay? I said only out. But you said after you tried to research it, you knew that it was after hours. You didn't have a vendor that was going to answer an email because it was the weekend. So, of course, him being him, they only work during the week typically because they're not concerned about your business or your well-being. So what they do is they say, well, we're going to work only on Monday through Friday, and we just sell components. Okay, guys, this is the same way it is in full-scale industry. 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10. Full-scale industrial businesses, it's Monday through Friday. Very, very few times, and I'm talking about full-scale manufacturing now, will you find a facility that will service a call after those hours. After a certain amount of hours, and again, everyone has different hours, but the main thing to watch out for is if it's a weekend, will they support the product on a weekend or when you're down? This is support that you typically do not find, not unless you have an in with a vendor that has their own tech support and says, hey, give Bill a call, if you have a problem. These are things you better plan for, okay? So let's say this vendor, being it's the weekend, you knew you didn't have a chance to get with him, so naturally you hit the forums, you're ready in 4 hours, and then you say, you know what, I can't find anything. I'm just going to get with the vendor. He'll help me. He sold me everything, right? And you find out that the vendor will not answer or doesn't give you the answer to the question. He's asking you questions. You're trying to cover things. He's going back and forth. And you realize that now you're kind of lost. You realize that the information you're receiving from him, you're trying but still getting the same result, or you're finding that he's saying, well, you need to buy this now. You need to buy that now. Or maybe you need another drive. You need to buy another drive. I've had so many of my clients tell me that. Well, they said the drive is bad, so they tell me then, here, buy another one of my drives. Okay? Guys, if one of their drives is bad, the odds of them selling you another bad drive is almost definite. Okay? And we'll look at this from this perspective. Let's say you bought another drive from him. Okay? And it only cost you, and most of them will say, oh, it only cost you $60 shipped. Okay? Now, I don't have that in here, but now you're going to have additional downtime because now you're waiting for shipping if you do standard shipping. And again, being he sold you the machine, you would think that it makes sense they would make it right as fast as possible because, again, your downtime is inclusive of this and you're paying for this. So what can you do when you're kind of at their mercy, so to speak? You've got you over a barrel. So right now you're at $60. You got a 4-hour downtime window there. It's just increased now to days. But that's not too big a deal because right now you're working part-time on this. You're only working on your weekend, right? Right. So you're going to go back to your regular 9 to 5 till you can get this business model up and running. That being said, you've still incurred $135 right now. Now, many of you don't even look at this. You don't look at these numbers because you don't realize that these numbers you're actually incurring because many of you say, well, I'm not paying myself because I'm doing the work. If you're losing time working on the machine, you're losing time manufacturing with the machine. Therefore, you're losing money because you're not producing product. If you're not producing product, you can't sell. So let's look at facts here. If you're already 135 in a hole, that doesn't sound so bad, right? No big deal. Okay. You get the new drive in, right? Now it's Friday. Your new drive is here. You're excited. Everything is cool. Your downtime and everything, we're not going to calculate in the extended lead time for shipping. We'll leave that out, okay? We're not even putting that in. We'll leave it out. Your new machine, you've already had to wait and incur. Actually, I'm wrong. We're going to incur another 4 hours of downtime because I think that's fair. If you had to wait, we'll say 4 to 5 days to get that new drive in, I'll say 8 hours of actual downtime. Now you're at $195 that you're waiting on a new machine for. Once again, because your labor, you're not working on the machine, but he is costing you time, and once again, time is money, and therefore you're at now $195 on a new machine. But like I said, Friday rolled around, you're ready to hit the weekend running, weekend warrior, trying to start your new business. Get the drive in, you install it, everything is done. We're not going to even put that labor in to install the drive, okay, because that would be another, well, we should really put it in, no, shouldn't we? We'll put another hour to put the drive in. Now you're at $210, okay? And you're wiring that drive the same way you see it done inside the enclosure. You know why? Because that's logical. That makes sense. But guess what? Nothing in that controller is wired properly in the sense of using shielded grounded cable, okay? Nothing is grounded, nothing is shielded. Everything is just strung in there. It looks neat, but you're doing it to the best of your ability. You're not an electrical engineer. You're just working on your own system, right? So you've wasted an hour to now install that new drive. I should say invested at this point, hopefully. And you're running the machine again. It's great. Everything is working. You're back to manufacturing, right? So we'll zero out this number. You're already in the hole, $210. Okay? We'll say 210 here. Okay? Now we'll zero this out. We'll zero this out. Actually, we'll leave that number in because it'll come in handy later on. And now we'll zero this number back out again. So we already got $210 right here that you've already spent on a brand new machine due to the downtime that's taken to get this machine back up and running again. All of a sudden, 4 hours go by, machine's running stable, everything looks good. 4.5 hours go by, your machine goes down again. Now you're back in the same boat again. Now, you don't waste any time. So you say your downtime's only going to be 2 hours because you're not going to waste time. You get back with the vendor, you're like, what the hell is going on here? You know, I just bought the drive, I'm not understanding why this machine is down again, and you're going through the same process again. And he says, well, what did you do? Da-da-da-da-da-da. Guess what? Now you're talking to him, and he's trying to go back and forth with you, and now he doesn't know whether to sell you something or if he thinks it's your fault or whatnot. Now that time goes up to 3 hours. Okay? More email confrontation going back, or I should say more email correspondence. It'll turn into confrontation if it keeps going because now you're frustrated, and you should be because your money's tied up, and this keeps going back and forth. And of course now, wait, we already said it was on the weekend because that's when you were off. So now, of course, he stops answering emails, right? So now you're down again another 5 hours. Just between, we'll say 5 hours, okay? Actually, it should be days, okay? If we start putting days in here, you'll see this number climb ridiculous. But we'll say you're reasonable, okay? We'll only add another, we'll say 5 hours total. You finally get an email back. You're already down another $75, and he's telling you to make sure you checked and seen, you know, all your wires are connected, something's loose, is the machine overheating? You don't know what it is, okay? He doesn't know what it is. All of a sudden, you go back online again. You're still down 5 hours. You're getting support from him, but it's open-ended support. It doesn't sound like you're talking to an engineer here. It sounds like you're talking to a guy who's troubleshooting and spot missing basically everything he's doing. He's the one who's selling the drives. You know that they're coming from China because you can see the stamp on them, but you can't go back to China because, number one, you don't speak Mandarin, and number two, you know that the money you're invested with him, he should be able to support it because you paid him, not the guy in China building the drive, right? Right. Guess what? That doesn't happen. So now you're up 10 hours, an additional 5 hours, and you're still wondering what the hell is wrong with your machine, right? So after all this research, you hit the internet again, and you find a channel that makes sense, whoever that channel may be, once again, be anybody, and you say to yourself, well, I realize now something is wrong here. I'm watching video after video. They're talking about shielded cable. They're talking about Uniform shielded cable. They're talking about Gecko Drive. They're talking about systems, not even Gecko Drive. They're just talking about US-based systems. Most of them you can't afford. Then you stumble upon Gecko Drive, ones that usually you can afford, way more affordable than most. And you figure out, okay, I need a new drive, or I need to figure out what components I need. So then we say, okay, you found a solution. We're going to zero this time out again. Okay. Now we're at 150 and 210. Now we come over here to component cost. You realize that you want to do the work yourself because you're trying to save any bit of money you can to reinvest in your business, get this business model off the ground, start making money, working out of that 9 to 5. And you sit there and you say, okay, I'm going to spend, the G540 makes the most sense. I'm going to go and I'm going to spend, and oh, wait a minute. I can go and I can do the work. I can buy the components. Most of the stuff I can get online. Okay, cool. I'll do this myself. I'm looking at, we'll say give or take, if you do all the work yourself, you're buying the base components somewhere around 500, we'll say. Okay. That's not buying from me. That's just going online, and we'll say you're gonna do the work yourself. It's going to take you an additional 3 hours. Because you're a novice, you've never done this before. And again, anyone who has never built a controller, I consider a novice. And the reason I say that, it's not to insult anybody. I know many of you have a professional background. This is different electronics. If you work on one set of electronics, whether you do radios, whether you do, whatever it may be, power supplies, working with CNC, there are different variables. It's no different than guys who say, I build computers. Really? There was a lot of that in the 90s. And if you realize a lot of those manufacturers that build computers, What they don't talk about is anyone can assemble the parts, but when there's troubleshooting to be done, do they know how to troubleshoot? That's the difference between a pro and a novice. Pro and a novice stumble upon results. They're non-consistent. Pros get the same results and execute excellence through consistency. That's the difference. So we'll say your hourly time now is not downtime. Well, I guess it is. We can consider it downtime. It's actually service time. We'll say 3 hours for you to retrofit your own system. Okay. You realize the motor mounts are different on the chassis that for the new motors that you're trying to put on. We'll say that, or actually, in this case, at 500, you're probably not going to be able to get motors. So either way, you're going to use the motors you got there, and you contact the vendor and you say, hey, you know what? I need the wiring diagram for these motors. Well, he tells you, hey, I ain't got that. So now you're back to hunting again. What do I do here? You know, the G540's got one wiring diagram. I don't get the right wiring diagram from him because it doesn't make logical sense. He's selling this system. He still can't give me the correct information. That 3 hours of downtime now just went up again, 6 hours downtime. Boom. You did some more internet research and you figured it out, and now you're back up again. You're at $590 now in total time spent between parts, labor, of you doing this and figuring out, hopefully, what will work. And I said hopefully, what will work with the machine. So let's total that at $590 right here. Okay? So right now we got $210, $150, and $590 total time spent between investing in parts, retrofitting, investing in time to actually get this thing off the ground and get the business model back where it's supposed to be. And let's just see what you've spent so far. Okay? We'll do it together. 210, 150. I know many of you are saying, why does it need to add this in Excel? Because sometimes I like just doing the calculator myself personally. We did $950, guys. $950 right there. You're at $1,000 additional because of a poor choice when you went to actually purchase the equipment. $950. Now, let's think about this in a different way. Okay? Let's look at this in a different format under a different scenario. Okay? What if you are purchasing a machine to retrofit for profit? I have a lot of potential clients contact me. Oh, you know, Vin, I'm going to an auction and I can buy this machine that's $40K for $5K. Okay? What do you think? What do you think I should do? Well, that's a really open-end question with a lot of variables. If you can't see what you're purchasing or watch that machine run, you're gambling, guys. But if you're willing to gamble, so be it. You say, hey, you know, I'm going to do it. I have many, many guys that do that. They say, I'm going to pay the $5K. I'm good. Okay. They buy the machine. We're going to transpire some of these headlines where we're actually describing what we're actually allocating here. When we say hourly downtime, now we're going to say this as hourly service time. Okay? Component cost, labor cost, no more. We won't worry about substrate, of course. We won't worry about client job loss per hour. Vendor engineering support, we'll worry about that in a minute. But overall, now it turns into service time. Okay? You never done a retrofit before? I always ask that question. No, I've never done it. Okay. How much for the components to retrofit this beast? Well, let's see. We're going to look, we are going to look at roughly, if it's full scale, we'll say a professional grade table, large size, between, we'll say 10 foot and in excess of 10 foot in width and also length. You're looking, and of course you want to go all the way so you can make as much money as you possibly can. We're going to say about 20, you want to do software, and you don't want to do software, you just want to do hardware. So we'll say about $2,000. Okay? And that's just regular NEMA 34s, nothing special. That's just Gecko Drive, NEMA 34, we're going base platform. We're going to say about $2,000. Okay? We'll say that your hourly service time investment is going to be a minimum because you're mechanically inclined, and this is what I'm always told, and I'm taking you for your word. We'll say that you can do it within 15 hours. Okay? Doing it yourself. Boom. Okay? Labor costs. This is where it gets interesting. Okay? Now, we got two ways to look at this. We can look at it from a perspective of you saving the money to hire somebody, which typically will cost in excess of $300 for the service visit, and then on top of that, an additional $125 an hour to actually get the machine connected if you can find someone locally. And when I say find someone locally, I'm not talking an engineer. I'm just talking about a tech, a possible tech, because again, you got to actually go back and hope that this tech is a real tech and not just a guy who's an enthusiast who plays with this stuff. That being said, if we're looking at a true engineer and you're looking at him setting up the equipment, you could be looking anywhere between $2,000 to $3,000 additional, guys. This is fact. Okay? On-site service calls for pro-grade level equipment like that, I'm telling you now, that's the cheap side. That's the cheap side. So keep that in mind. We'll say in this instance, you're going to work on the machine and you are going to be saving the money. And we'll say right now your projected output is only $2,000. Okay? You think there's nothing wrong. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to knock this out. I'm golden. $2,000. I'm going to have a total investment of $6,000. Got a table that's worth $40,000. I should be making bank. Well, guess what? You go into the table and you realize there's all kinds of problems. You've never done this before. So now that 15 hours just went, you're already at 25 hours. Boom. Okay? Now we're at 25 hours. And again, the labor cost, and actually we didn't factor in labor costs before, but if we factor in labor costs now at 25, okay, we're going to be looking at, give or take, we'll say $15 an hour again. That's just your labor costs. We're not going to factor in the actual service calls labor costs because, once again, you could say you're saving all that, or we could say it's actually arbitrary, and right now you'll accept $15 an hour to work on this. You're now at basically $2,375 just with the downtime. But now you're experiencing what I call that bottleneck approach, where you're finding you understand some things, but you're not understanding everything. You purchased this equipment and you did this from a vendor who you're hoping will produce the support you require. Okay, I get guys that'll say, well, you know, if I buy from you, will you offer support? Now I do. Okay, I always do. My guys will tell you that's just part of the business as far as I'm concerned. However, many vendors do not. And when I say do not, if you think they're going to sit on the phone with you or discuss your system in detail, what you need to do, what you need to watch out for, that's not going to happen. Okay? You're doing a retrofit on a full-scale machine. You have to validate many different components, namely your transmission, motor mounts. Are they reliable? Are the bearings reliable? Is there rust in the system? Lots and lots of variables. Are you doing a full electronic retrofit, which most likely you are? If you are, then those variables as well. Is motors available? What kind of motors? I mean, lots of engineering time. And once again, if you're not dealing with a vendor who will offer that as a service, get ready to drop at least, I would say, we'll say $400. Okay? So now you're at $2,775, and once again, this is with you doing the work and understanding and actually comprehending what's involved with you doing the work. Okay? You're getting the support from the vendor. Everything is golden. You're looking good. You're running into some more issues with questions, and now the vendor is not responsive. It's the weekend. You know, they're kind of getting back to you, hairiness, and, you know, it is kind of what it is. And now you're like, you know what? I just want to get this done. I need help. I need on-site help. And if you do that, guys, I'm telling you now, you're already at basically $3,000. If you do it, you're going to be looking easily at another $2,000 to $3,000 if you're expecting someone to come out there and possibly set the system up. Okay, and when I say set it up, I'm just talking about connecting the motors. You've already built the controller, validating everything, you know, checking everything in the sense of the programming. That's it. If you're talking about engineering a controller, building it, everything else, you're looking easily once again at an additional 2 to 3, maybe possibly 4, depending on the size of the table. And remember, they typically never will price a unit until they see it. I do not do that myself. If I do an on-site service call, I'm not going to shoot myself in the foot and think I'm working on a 60-40 and I get there and you've got an 8x12. It's not going to happen. Most of you will always let me know that. But again, there's a point of logic that we have to look at here. And like a typical mechanic, you can't engineer something blindly. I have to see what I'm working with. They have to see what they're working with. And once again, they're going to be paid for what they do. They know that they're working on equipment that's going to make you money. And again, that being said, you're going to have a higher ticket cost because of that. So just be aware of that. Either way, this can easily get out of control, and you can easily see here how these numbers add up, I mean, exponentially. And let's just look here at 25 hours, right? And let's say at that point you're at this 2775. And that's what you've incurred so far. And then we zero this out, and you say, you know what? I got a guy who's going to help me do this because I'm not getting the support I need. I really need to get involved with this. And what we want to do is I want to get this done so I can get this unit flipped. He's telling me it'll take 5 hours. First of all, anyone who quotes you a time, a contractor or any contractor who quotes you a time to finish a job, never, ever believe it. Until it's done, it can take an extra hour, 2 hours. I can't tell you how many times guys have asked me, when are you going to get done? When do you think it'll be done? I leave a lead time open with a much longer duration than required. You know why I do that? It's because, number one, I don't burn my client in an expectation that I can't fulfill. And number two, it makes you guys understand that anything is possible with this equipment until I see it, until I look at it, until I work on it, until I talk to you about it. There's many different variables. Anybody giving you a definitive time, I strongly caution you with that. I cannot emphasize that enough. So once again, if we put an hourly time in here that this professional is going to come out and he said he'll work on it relatively cheap, we're not even going to include his actual service call time. We'll just say he's going to charge you $125 an hour on the low end, and he say he's going to do it and build the system, and it's going to take him, we'll say, 6 hours between setup and everything. That's an additional $750. So let's look at that. Boom, boom, boom. Here we are again, $27.75. You're well over, let's say, plus, what did we say there, $750? You're at now $35.25, okay, over the additional cost that you anticipated. And again, that's if we're looking at just these variables. We're not looking at any more vendor issues, vendor time constraints, part replacement. Look at what you're dealing with. Understand the gravity of the money you're potentially spending. And as long as you do, believe me, I have many clients that do retrofits for profit. There's a lot of money in it if you understand the business and understand exactly what you're dealing with. However, using inferior components is a good way to shoot yourself in the foot. I can't emphasize that enough. If you start, trying to nickel and dime everything, and once you get that CNC nickel and dime syndrome, it's very hard to get the antidote to that disease, because most guys, they'll trickle it out. It doesn't look like much. I already spent $27.75. They don't acclimate it. They don't quantify what they're spending. Then they go down again. Now it's $750 here. You know who usually tells you? It's really funny. Who usually actually tells you that this is getting out of hand is your better half. She'll figure it out and say, you're spending a lot of money and time on this thing. That's when you start looking at it and going, yeah, but I can make a lot of money and this, that, and the other. You start rationalizing it. Be careful, guys. Pay attention to this. These are real numbers. These are real figures. This happens every day. I deal with it. 98% of my business is it. I'm not really proud of that. I wish I was, but that's not something I'm proud of. I am proud of making the machines work the way they're supposed to and make you money. That's what I'm proud of. But again, be cautious and understand what you're getting involved with this business, whether it be, again, purchasing a system. And again, purchasing a system doesn't mean you're buying, necessarily overseas, because I get questions on that too. Should I buy my system overseas? I still get questions on that daily. Here's a system that came in. It's a 6040 from America. So it's actually built in the U.S., or sold in the U.S. from a vendor, okay, out of Chicago. I'm not going to mention names. That's surface rust, guys, on a supposed brand new 6040 chassis. Now, many of you go, well, surface rust is no big deal. Actually, it's a very big deal, especially when you're paying for a new system and the warehouse that these units are being stored in isn't properly climate controlled, which means you have moisture penetration. Once that occurs, the entire system needs to be stripped, cleaned, and made sure that everything is linear as it should be to get the proper duration and reliability out of the system. Now, whether or not you're willing to do that, you have to take that into really account, because this time is going to cost you. Here's how it actually was shipped. We can see we have shipping damage here. We zoom in a little bit. We can see some other things that don't make a lot of sense. Why is this tore off? That makes absolutely no sense. This plate's warped. As we go through the pictures more, we can see surface marring on the base of the chassis. Again, if I was the client, I'd be pissed. You know, if I'm paying for this and I'm paying in the U.S. thinking I'm doing the right thing, he thought he was doing the right thing. And then he got told, and this is the best part, after he sent me these pictures, what do you think I should do? We can see here we've got more flange that's warped, bent, whatever we got here. We definitely have moisture penetration because you can see on the aluminum here this discoloration, which could easily be removed with some Scotch-Brite. But it's all work that you have to do that you shouldn't have to. You paid for a system to be new. That's what you're paying for. They need to be held liable for doing what they're supposed to do. If I sell you a new system, I'm not going to sell you a system that's been sitting out in the rain. And this is where the logic comes in. And again, the sad part is that this client was told, after reviewing these pictures, he was told he wanted to, or he contacted the vendor, and the vendor told him that he wanted to have him mail it back at his expense. He wanted to make him pay shipping for sending this load of crap to him and claiming it's a new system when it never should have been shipped to begin with. And why was it shipped? Let's think about this, because I bring this up all the time. It's because this vendor is doing nothing but direct flipping, and he's not paying attention to any of the product that's coming in his warehouse. They might do a quick oversight on one system out of 20, like China does with most of their drives, and you guys get the short end of the stick. Do you know why they don't implement as many quality control inspections? It's because it's so damn expensive. It's not cheap. Imagine trying to examine every component in this machine, and you'll figure out real quick why quality control is what makes 98% of all businesses in the U.S. fail. And when I say quality control, guys, I'm talking about service as well. If you look at a giant Fortune 500 or even a larger company, ask yourself this question. We could do a real quick demonstration of this right now. Call your local electric company. Call your local phone company or internet provider. They're the best. Call your internet provider. Tell them something's wrong with your system, whatever it may be, your internet's down or whatever. They're going to walk you through a set of, predetermined checklist of, mumbo gumbo to go through to hopefully get your system up and running again. Call them back in 5 minutes. You're going to get a different person. They're going to tell you a different set of things. They're going to walk you through, well, this is that. You'll sit on hold. They could care less. And the unfortunate side is, these loopholes are there because these businesses worry and quantify all of their sales in bulk. They do not worry about quality. And that's what typically leads to most companies shutting down, especially the smaller ones. Larger scale companies can get away with that a lot easier than the smaller scale companies. And that's where you have to be different. And that's the beauty of getting involved with micromanufacturing, is that you control all those different variables. They don't. This instance with this vendor, he feels he's one of the rare few that carries this chassis, and you're willing to eat it because, it came in, it's still in relatively decent condition. But guess what? You paid him over $1,000 for this unit, and guess what? Now you're either going to end up stripping the entire chassis down and really second guessing everything in the chassis, or you're going to go through and accept it. Okay, and just go with it. And I've had clients do that as well. So that's why I tell you, there's a lot of different variables here. This spreadsheet I'm going to make available. If you guys want a copy of it, you can test it yourself. I mean, add it up yourself and see if I'm wrong or I'm right. But one of the things I cannot emphasize enough, most of what you just saw here, rewind the video, most of what you just saw here as far as total cost acquired, or I should say additional cost required to manufacture, when you make the incorrect purchase due to the fact that you think you're doing it right, you're trying to save a buck, trying to start your business the right way, you buy a chassis overseas or in the U.S., you don't get the support you need, and you find out real quick that if you do get a good vendor, 9 out of 10 times, any good vendor, 9 out of 10 times, it would have cost you usually less just buying the system outright or doing it right the first time than going through this, because once you're infected with the nickel and dime syndrome, it does not stop. It's costly, it's deadly, it can sabotage your entire business. Not only that, it can also sabotage any passion you had for doing the business, because you become so enthralled with the frustration that it just goes backwards. Review my videos. Go through those past client presentations of machines that are a mess And you're going to see these aren't BS stories. More and more you are coming forward to me. And again, my database of clients is increasing because of that. And again, that's not something to be proud of. It's something to be proud of to say that I can turn that around for you. But if I present this in a way that makes it understandable for you in a transparent format that you can use this calculator yourself, you'll figure out the math much quicker and hopefully make the right decision to get you back on track. So again, I hope this video has been helpful. I know it's been longer than anticipated. I mean, I've tried to shorten it down, but there is a lot to cover. Again, I will put my contact information in the description. You can contact me direct at my email with questions, storm2313@gmail.com. And again, I also have my eDealer Direct store on eBay. You'll have that link as well. Think about these videos, guys. Go through them. Take your time. I hope you watched it to the end. There's a lot to digest, a lot to learn. Take notes. And again, if you want a copy of this spreadsheet, message me. I'll be more than happy to send you a copy. And you can keep this, at least present. Even if you don't buy from me, keep it present, or even thinking about getting involved in CNC. Keep it present and see. Do the test yourself. You can call these vendors up who you're thinking about buying from and see how they support. Pretend that, you've got an issue. How do I do this? How do I do that? I'm looking to get involved in CNC. Will they schedule a phone call with you? Will they take time out of their day to not just make the sale but stand behind it? There's a big difference there, especially as you're trying to automate your business. Many of my clients are transitioning from looking at, hand fabrication and looking into automating whatever process it may be. I mean, I've had everything from automatic wedding cake production, which sounds kind of crazy, to automatic sewing machines. Okay? You name it. I mean, the venue is expanding greatly. And again, we're only limited by your guys' ideas. Overall, do your research and take your time, and I'm sure you'll make the right decision. Thank you all for listening. Take care.